Keeping animation simple, light, and clean helps produce better performance for games and makes for a much smoother animation workflow. In this video, we'll examine creating animation with Maya for a Unity project. This will provide a quick overview of a simple character setup, including skeletons, IK, and simple controllers, keyframing tips, editing curves, and tips for baking animation and exporting for Unity. In this example, we're using Maya for animation, but by all means, the same principles and concepts apply to any animation package, so use what you prefer. As we can see here in Unity with the survival shooter game, we have a simple dog character with a couple of different animation scenarios, a loopable walk cycle, and then some ambient idle activity. When working with animation in Maya, the first thing we want to check is our animation settings and preferences. Here we can confirm things like our frame rate and playback settings. While we're at it, as a tip for high poly characters, we can also dive into the Viewport 2.0 settings and set vertex caching. This setting is especially useful when working with dense data. So let's take a look at this simple skeleton setup process. Using the joint tool, we can start by placing joints to define a hip and continue downwards to complete an entire leg. Again, using simple joints to achieve the animation we need here is the best bet. Creating the legs is a good first step, and then moving on to defining the spine. Here I'm keeping the joint count low while placing them in an evenly spaced fashion. Parenting the hips with the P hotkey and the shoulders to the spine connects our skeleton. We can define a simple jaw and parent that bone to the head as well. The nice thing about working with joints is that we can simply mirror and copy them to the other side. Now let's add some IK, or inverse kinematics, to the character. This allows for quick and easy access as opposed to completely animating on the bone or solely with FK, or forward kinematics. Testing this setup reveals some good motion for creating stepping and walking with the legs. A little tip, sometimes grabbing the IK handles in Maya can get a little tricky when animating. Using constraints, I've replaced the handles with simple NURB circles for easy selection. Once our character is set up, we are ready to start animating. For this character, we have two basic requirements, a walk cycle and an idle stance, both of which have to loop. The first step is to place a keyframe on everything at frame 0. After this, I'm now able to use the controllers and move them into place for keyframing. There are many approaches to animating a four-legged character walk. In this case, the walk needs to be short, work as a loop, and contain minimal keyframes. The graph editor in Maya contains some very handy tools to preview how your walk animation loops. With everything selected, we could set pre and post infinity to see how it loops in playback. Have a look at how your animation is looping in both the viewport and the graph editor. If you see a spike, adjust your animation to loop smoothly. From the time slider, we can see that we have a walk separated by a gap of space, and then some simple ambient motion to serve as a loopable idle. Another handy tip, place notes on your animation takes on the hips. This is a handy way to keep track of multiple animation takes for Unity projects. Once our animation is complete and we are ready to bring this to Unity, we need to ensure that we are selecting what we want to export. Grab the skeleton at the hips and then select the hierarchy using Edit, Select Hierarchy, then Shift select the model. Under the File menu, select the Export Selection options. Here we want to make sure that we have the following options set for an FBX file format. Under Geometry, add smoothing groups. This is to ensure that any adjustment to normals, for example soft or hard edges, comes over. Under Animation, make sure the box is checked. Let's select Bake Animation. This creates a lighter, more optimized file while preserving your overall animation. Check the length of keys. It defaults to your timeline settings. Finally, select your directory. In this case, I'm exporting directly to my Unity project folder under the Assets and Models. The simple practices and principles as outlined here are applicable to any package you choose to animate with. Unity is incredibly powerful and can handle just about anything you throw at it. So have fun creating with Unity.